pleased to welcome Ignacio back into the studio with us from Pellicer and Heredia. Alicante lawyers, if you're Googling, easy to find them online. Good to talk to you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, Carl, just good afternoon. It's been probably some years.
It has indeed, yes. You were stolen by Moody on the breakfast show. But of course, he's doing all things digital now, and you're still continuing with some of that as well, aren't you?
That's right. That's very good.
We joined you the other day, Ignacio. You were talking on your own webinar, which you do on a sort of bi-weekly basis, don't you, about golden visas, which of course has been very much in the news recently. And perhaps we should recap a little bit about what's happened. The end of the golden visas is going to mean something to some people, but perhaps not to as many people as we thought.
That's correct. I mean, if you read the numbers, even though you probably know that all the numbers are with quotes, because we really don't know whether they are really correct or not, but it is not going to be that much impact. The thing is, for some people, non-European countries, selling a property abroad over 500,000 euros is quite common because the cost of living in different countries is much more. So it was a good opportunity to sell your main property, move on to Spain, relocate yourself, and get a visa which gives you free movement in Europe. You are probably welcome to work, welcome to come stay, like the non-lucrative, and they're welcome for you to be non-taxpayer. So which means you don't need to pay income tax return if you stay less than 183 days. So for me, that golden visa is perfect because it gives you all these possibilities, a lot of flexibility, and we're still getting, Carl. We're still getting. Yesterday, actually, I got 2 golden visas already approved.
And what's the timeline for getting them approved at the moment? Quite quick, I think.
Yeah, actually, we're getting an average of 20 working days.
Wow, it's pretty quick for Spain.
Yeah,
it really is, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say this is the quickest visa ever. I mean, more than the normal visa, because, I don't know, is this in a center in Madrid? Is that deals only with this?
Dedicated to just that.
Dedicated, yeah. And they're very efficient, I must say. I mean, it's the most efficient thing that I've ever seen in the administration.
So why are people still applying even though it's going to end?
Right, good question. The way I see is people are going to invest in coal anyway. So that's what I say to clients. If you're going to go for it anyway, do it sooner rather than later. If you're going to do it anyway, why will you lose the opportunity? Now, I think is worth doing. I don't think it's going to be removed so quickly. I think it was more publicity on the left-wing party, trying to bring a lot of allegations.
Well, they're cancelling something that was brought in by the previous Conservative government, the PP.
That's right.
So
Correct.
I can see the politics.
The politics.
But also there were the statistics that came out of it that actually we were thinking maybe a lot of Brits will go for it because, Brits can no longer have the free movement since Brexit. But as it turns out, it was lots of Chinese and Russian people that took up the option.
The number one, I believe, it was Chinese and then the Russians. But if you see the numbers after the years, well, you could see the impact of Brexit after 2021. Then a lot of Americans that are relocating to Spain and, they sell their properties over there. And in general, it's more than 500,000. So for them, it's not a big deal to just say, okay, let's sell it and move over here. And we get the visas and that's the end of it. Not less, Carl, you will get with people investing the 1 million euros on shares or investments or the 2 million public debt. Okay, which I don't think that's going to be removed. So but this is only me guessing, reading the news, because the only news you could find will be the one that he published that day.
Well, yes, absolutely. There is plenty from the government about it, isn't there?
Yeah.
And it's all obviously in the way that they want to portray it and the way that they want to see it. So in this webinar that you had the other day, you had some experts as well as the guys that normally are on your staff talking about this. What were the big questions that people were asking?
Well, the big question, I think the most important ones are, can I still submit it? This is only one. And the answer is yes. You're still on time until this law is changed, modify, or, you could carry on doing. As I said yesterday, I got another 2 Americans.
And it's very quick.
And it was very quick. We had everything. When we handled the conveyancing, we had everything beforehand. So once we complete, we just lodge it through, even though there is some paperwork still pending. We take advantage and try to buy time. That's what we did with this couple. And the other question that is important about renewals that you made.
Yeah, there was that question that we had from a couple that were asking basically what happens then, because they're valid for 3 years. So they're all valid for 3 years.
Yeah, the 3 years, then you renew 2 years, and then you will carry on renewing. Yes, so you can,
even
after the
if
5
it's
years.
going to end, you can still renew. We don't know that yet, do we?
I mean, to be honest, we don't know what changes they're going to go, how far they're going to go, and what kind of performance after the publicity is going to happen.
Right. So initially you can still do it. It'll still be for 3 years.
Yes.
But we're not quite sure yet what happens at the 3-year period.
My understanding will be that, let's put it this way, the one from yesterday, 3 years, then 2 years, then we get the 5, and then renew 5 and 5 and 5. But I don't see the government stopping if you already have acquired rights. It's quite aggressive.
You're already there, aren't you?
You're already there.
It's almost like when we were looking at it for people that had been living in Spain from the UK. Brexit happened. Those that filled the requirements were still allowed to stay.
Correct.
So you'd think it would be a similar scenario.
A similar scenario. I don't see the government being that aggressive unless they've got a purpose. But I don't find it limiting citizens' rights, freedom of movement and things like that.
And certainly this government isn't really known for that. And actually, if it does swing about and we get a change in government, they're the guys that brought the golden visa in the first place. So,
Yeah. So this is a situation. Again, they did an interview of El Confidencial the other day about what we think about the golden visa. And to be honest, I think it works. It's good. Whether they want to change it for more money, but it brings possibilities for people who bring money into the country. You don't need to go for golden visa if you don't reach 500. So you could go with an NLV, non-lucrative visa.
There are lots of options, aren't there? So that this non-lucrative visa, tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, the non-lucrative visa, pretty much all the requirements somebody applying for a golden visa will fit into this category. The only difference is these people must stay in Spain more than 6 months in a calendar year. So which means they're going to be in a position of being tax resident. Now, the thing with the golden visa, it doesn't make you tax resident. So let's say you've got a lot of business, a lot of work, and you don't really know, because if you do tax planning, you pay here X amount. But probably over there is more efficient. And then you say, why would I? Right? Then you don't stay that longer. So you've got the visa, you could stay up to 6 months, right? Because you're allowed to stay longer, but you decide not to because of a tax. You don't need a visa just for that. For example, I'll give you an example of some case I had today in the office. Some people are, let's put it this way, Irish, okay? And the wife, British, okay?
Yeah, so you've got somebody who is entitled within the EU and somebody who isn't.
Right. And I'll put it this way. He will apply for the green card residency permit for Europeans. The wife, based on the marriage certificate, will apply a family member of a European citizen. So both of them will be European citizen to the same rights. Right. But what happens, they will be entitled to stay as much as they wish for 5 years, right? But they could decide for tax purposes stay less than 6 months. So that's an option as well.
It depends on your needs, really,
Correct.
I suppose, and how you want to do it. So that's just one of the other options. Of course, there's the nomad visa, which is another option.
The nomad visa, that's a visa for people that are willing to work remotely. And these people working remotely must be working for a company more than 3 months, being entitled to work remotely in Spain by the company. The company needs to be more than 1 year operating in business, and we need to register the company on Social Security here. Now, this nomad visa is one of the most complex but more efficient as well, because the nomad visa, it will be like the Beckham Law as well. Automatically, if you qualify with it, you haven't been tax resident for the past 5 years, it will be 24% tax based on your income only generated working remotely. You will not pay anything else in Spain for any other assets. Up to 600,000 euros is 24%. and then after 600,000, 47. But the good thing of that regime, so it's two things: the immigration side, that is the nomad visa, and the Beckham Law. Okay, altogether, you could still get a visa and not to apply for Beckham Law, so it's optional.
Do you need to have a certain amount of money or be earning a certain amount of money to become or to get a nomad visa?
Yes,
I think you do.
a minimum. There is a minimum exactly the same as a non-lucrative visa. So you need to have a minimum financial means, 27,000 euros minimum per year. And then when you've got, and the good thing of the nomad visa, that extends to your family members as well. So that extends husband or wife and children. But the beauty of it is they could do whatever they like. So they're not limited to work remotely. These people could work as you and me here in Spain, doing whatever kind of business. And they benefit of the tax regime as well. So, but that's an option. The nomad visa, I really like it, but as every single visa, you need to fit and suit and qualify with their requirements. And they're not...
Is it right for you, or is there something else that might be a better fit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly it. But every interview I do call, every interview, I try to understand their personal position. So, and I try to dig on the easiest and the best option. For example, as I said, you're married to an Irish, then our life could be easier in these respects, you know? If you are not willing to work and you've got the money, the non-lucrative visa, because you're not going to spend the 500,000, you don't need to. You probably want to buy 100,000 euros plot of land and build it, and you don't want to be limited. If you're already going to invest it anyway, and you're going to buy a nice villa, then we need to advise you on how to do it, because you cannot buy joint. If you buy joint with the golden visa, it will fail because it's 500,000 euros.
I see.
Per person, or with dependents, but it needs to be in your name. So this is one of the mistakes that took place from 2013, that people say, oh, I invest all these.
That would help. BayRadio International talking to Ignacio from Pellicer and Heredia International Lawyers, and plenty on the tax front. We've been discussing visas, and we talked about golden visas, about the non-lucrative visa and the nomad visa, Ignacio. There are a couple of other possibilities, aren't there, for working or living in Spain?
Yeah, these are the most common, probably, that because it suits a lot of people. But the student visa, I say that is a very nice way to come over to Spain and start. Is not a very complex. We could do it once you arrive in Spain if we've got all the documents like criminal records, the health insurance, the padron, obviously payment of your academy to learn Spanish, because that's one of the requirements, and have money in the bank in Spain. With that, the student visa is very good. It lasts as much as your program. There is a link that they could check with the academies to learn Spanish.
And this is for anybody who's not part of the EU.
Correct.
So UK, American,
yes.
Canadian,
non-European. And we are doing a lot of student visas. And to be honest, Carl, is the easiest way to just try to jump into. And then from here, we could change into a different visa. Some people say, oh, I want to start working. Well, that's a work visa from abroad is a bit of a nightmare, because the way it works in the consulate, they send the paperwork to Alicante office. Since we're here in Alicante, they will send it to Malaga or whatever. But they just middleman. So, dealing with two administrations, not only one. So you've got the...
Doubles the time.
Yeah. Immigration and the consulate. And the fees over there are much more. It's like granting power of attorney over there is much more money than here in a public notary. So I recommend to have an appointment to prepare everything. This is what we probably do a lot. And then when they just arrive here, we just provide all paper. We need to do it within 59 days of your arrival. And the parents could get that as well, or they could apply for a non-lucrative visa, or they could get as well a tutor of a dependent to study.
I see.
So that's another way, is a legal way to do it. And obviously after 2 years of legal residency, with different countries, we could apply for nationality.
Depends on the agreements that Spain have with different individual countries.
I mean, all the Iberian Americans countries, Portugal, Andorra, Philippines, and obviously a few more, 2 years of legal residency, then you get your nationality. You need to apply for it. And but yes, I think the student visa might help a lot.
Yeah, and the strange thing is for Great Britain that last week the EU were offering British students the possibility to have free movement as they did prior to Brexit, and that would have been, I think, up to 30 years old. But then the UK government has said they don't want to do that. They'd rather have individual agreements with individual countries. I don't quite understand why, whether it's because they think they might be able to get more in those sorts of agreements than they might as an EU agreement as a whole, or whether it's your view, which we were talking about in the break, which is Brexit was a divorce, and for a long time after a divorce, people just don't like to do things.
I'm more of that opinion. It's more about the ego of not accepting because you either take it or leave it. You know, you didn't agree with there is not planned, there is not. So we're falling out.
Yeah, it's going to take a long time.
Yeah, until we recover the confidence, you know?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Really, it sounds quite strange, doesn't it? Because I think it's a bit short-sighted as well, isn't it, for Britain? Because if you think, what sort of benefits that Britain gets from their students, their young people being able to travel across Europe, just that travel experience, but learn other languages, and maybe, learn other trades, and then bring that back to Britain, then that's got to benefit the country rather in the long term.
Yeah. And actually, you value a lot of things now because we don't have it. I mean, you find out the problems. We already knew that was a possibility, Carl, but I never respected this situation because to the citizens, it doesn't help much, does it? I mean, it's only problems, administrative problems, and you don't win here at customs. I have a friend that he deals with customs all the time. Now customs is an issue.
Yeah,
everything is an issue.
Actually, I went round and round in circles at Christmas trying to deal with customs in Madrid and in the end, whatever somebody had sent us got sent back. But I guess they were a bit hot at Christmas time with stuff, because they were making a few bucks, I suppose, off people. But yeah, it's been difficult, the whole Brexit scenario, and it seems like we've been talking about it forever, and we continue to, because it still rears its ugly head. There are things not happening in Britain now that we've been hearing about recently, and they can't actually go to the new rules because they're not ready, or they don't have the infrastructure or the technology, and it's
to be honest, I think is going backwards in a relationship, is that everything needs to be a deal. So now everything needs to be an individual deal. The other way around is like you're part of the club, isn't it? You're part of the club. We all agree all these rules. Okay, like the rules, the statutes of your company, this is a minimum. For example, when we go to court, Carl, and now because of Brexit as well, the agreements now are different. The international agreements through the courts are completely different. So
now we had previously under the EU.
For example, let's say you have a divorce sentence. A divorce sentence, I just need the Hague apostille and the translation, and then enforcing. It was not an issue because it was in a European country, and I don't need to start the executor, which is a procedure. Executor procedure, it's called in Latin, in Spain. But now we need to make that sentence legal in Spain, which is just time, money, and it takes more hassle to legalize and make that legal. Because
Britain is now a third country, so outside the EU.
And then we need to legalize that sentence, and then it's enforceable. All these things. I mean...
well, the Brexiteers would say that it's allowed Britain to be freer and make its own trade agreements in other parts of the world that perhaps the EU have never got done or aren't interested in doing. But hey, that's up to them. I know where we stand on this.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a look at taxes, specifically in Madrid, because there's a new Mbappé tax that we're hearing about, but also Spain-wide, because the Beckham tax still applies for a lot of people as well. This this piece of legislation, named after a famous footballer again, because, hey, they're the ones with the cash. But he'll be probably the first to benefit from lower taxes in Madrid, along with other foreigners. He's French, Kylian Mbappé, for those who don't know, currently plays for Paris Saint-Germain. It's been going on and on forever, but it looks like he's going to sign for Real Madrid in the summer. But I think the right-wing Madrid government are looking there to attract more foreign investment into the region with beneficial fiscal rates. So it's something that they'll be able to do as they're an independent region, well, not independent, but a region of Spain, independently of the central government taxation rules. That's what I was going to say. Whereas, so the Beckham Law, though, which you are quite well schooled on, what does that allow people to do when they come to Spain?
Well, the Beckham Law, as you know, it was created, and they did it exactly the same. They created for Beckham because he was the first one to enjoy that specific tax regime for people who works. It was not about working remotely, obviously. It was for working abroad and not being tax resident. In the old days, it was 10 years. Now it's 5 years. So that law, Beckham Law, is being modified recently because of the nomad visa. So the nomad visa is part of the startup law. It's what we call it, the startup law. It was promoting about setting up business startups, right? And trying to bring talent from different places and allowing them to work here.
To benefit Spain as a whole. So it was in any of the regions, not specifically Madrid, which we were talking about for the Mbappé one.
The thing is, to do a law, you need to deal with the central government, right? Now, in this case, probably they are trying to concentrate Madrid because, the state and Madrid, every region controls 50% of the tax. So whatever tax you pay, average, it gives you 50% this community, 50% the state. So if I'm just guessing, if they approach the president, probably Isabel Ayuso, and because she's very proactive on bringing talent, bringing money, reducing taxes. So I'm sure that was the approach. And they did approach her to do something to reduce the tax. How do you do it? You need to do in Madrid to reduce the tax of what they're capable to do. Otherwise, they need to speak to Pedro Sanchez probably and then make an agreement. And probably that's harder.
So maybe other regions could possibly follow should this Mbappé law go through, which it looks like it is. Specifically, applicants will be able to deduct 20% of all the money they invest in the Madrid region under the Mbappé law. But the Beckham law, as you said, still exists for the whole of Spain, and people can take advantage of that. Are there any parameters on how much money you can and can't earn? Does it go up and changes?
Do you mean the Mbappé law?
Under the Beckham law.
Oh, the Beckham law, yes.
What we know all about.
Yeah, the Beckham Law, which is quite solid now. You need to be non-tax resident in Spain for more than 5 years. So even Spaniards who are working abroad and they are coming over here, they could apply for the Beckham Law, okay, because they have been more than 5 years tax resident. They haven't been tax resident in Spain for more than 5 years. Then if you work remotely, and that's the Beckham Law, and the company allows you and you register here and your company pays social security here, the taxation is 24%. Flat fee up to 600,000 euros income. And you don't pay anything else except income tax only based on that specific salary. So if you have money from property abroad, you don't pay tax here. If you don't qualify for wealth tax, because that's...
Do you still have to declare on your on the form, that you have this money that's not in the country, even if you're under this particular law?
That my understanding is that if you're only going to be taxed in Spain for the income tax return that you're having, the rest of it is irrelevant.
Okay, if you're under that particular
Beckham law. The good thing here, Carl, is 24% up to 600,000. So that allows all these players to get,
I was going to say, you have to be a football player pretty much, or a company director or something like that, or owner of BayRadio. I mean, that sort of thing. To benefit from the Beckham Law. I knew that would make you laugh.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But yes, Mbappé Law, I think, is going to be...
I've got a few of the details on it. They're saying
go ahead.
The question is, what's the catch? So there are a few caveats which depend on how long you stay in Madrid specifically. The new regulations establish you'll have to stay and live in Madrid for a total of 6 years. If you leave before those 6 years are up, you'll be forced to return part of the tax savings you made.
Yeah.
So Madrid will ultimately benefit as a region because it will get more of the tax that they wouldn't have got otherwise. Yeah,
that's right. They will get something, and plus will bring wealth to their region.
Yeah.
So that will just, they will spend the money. They will spend the money in Madrid anyway. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the point. And I think the government in Madrid is very proactive. But you got a good point here. Could any region do the same? Yes, I mean, Catalonia could do exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Once they've sorted out the elections.
Yeah, but they're too busy now with that, They're too busy with elections and their own internal arguments.
I call it, absolutely. Just before you go, Ignacio, what are the things that you're dealing with most for people at the moment? What is it the things that people are struggling with? TIE still a concern, for instance?
Right. I still having... and then I just bring the attention to the audience. If anybody still struggling with a TIE, TIE swapping, it wouldn't be renewal. But probably, I'm sure there is people still that they did not apply for the TIE yet. Mm-hmm. And they were here before,
So that's okay, as I understand it, if you have the green residency form?
If you've got the green residency form, you should be fine. Swapping. Okay, we need to get you an appointment. You get an appointment. You put the padron, your photo. Here you go. And then in 3 weeks' time, you should have the TI. That
Getting an appointment is difficult. Though. There's still some. It depends where you are, but it's difficult for to wait to get an appointment. Now, what about those who didn't have that green residency?
Right,
is that still possible?
I mean, that's still possible. I agree. And due because we've been suing the administration so many times, obviously they know us already in the courts.
Well, as I understand it, in the court sometimes the judges are asking you guys because you deal with it far more often than they do.
Yeah, actually, there is not that many people that deals with these cases, so they say as well.
And actually, the courts have been pointing people to Pellicer and Heredia for these type of cases.
Because sometimes these, the administrative court deals with different subjects. For example,
not
the
just
tax,
TIE
not
or
just extranjería, right? And extranjería, which is foreign office, sometimes you get it a lot. You get a lot of lawyers with legal aid as well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everybody
so
gets.
Not everybody can be schooled in the detail on every single part of it.
And the thing, what we do call when a client comes to the office and they explain their problem, and we try to find all possible solutions. So we apply for the residency. Then we know already they're going to say no because it's their attitude. Their attitude because of Brexit is. They submit, they say the insurance is out of date because they got the insurance. Let's say I've got everything except the insurance and I get it today and I submit it tomorrow. They will say, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you your TIA because the insurance is dated today. But the law doesn't say that the insurance needs to be dated when you were resident as well, because you were, but you didn't apply for it. So they're getting confused. That's why I tell the lawyer of a state, they were residents. Anyway, they were residents, but they didn't apply for the residency card. That's something different. And they still insist that no, because you didn't padron, you didn't have that. So we take it to court, we have a hearing, and then they hold a sentence. Thank God, so far, so good. Everything with sentence in our favor, most of them with legal cost. And I try to insist is an average, even though it's symbolic, because probably they only pay you 500 euros or something like that, but better than nothing, And then you wouldn't believe, Carl, some of the cases, they still even there to appeal the decision. So the lawyer of a state appeals the decision of granting the residencia take it to the High Court.
Why do they do that?
I don't know. They're stubborn.
Okay.
Their way, is making our life more difficult and miserable. That's why I tell them. That's why I go there and I tell them
come
off.
up against you, Ignacio.
Listen, is our time there? We have 5-10 minutes. I tell them off. I say, this is unacceptable. And they still appeal. So you know what I'm doing now? I'm enforcing that sentence to get their TA, temporary TA. So I try to get it beforehand.
I see.
If I am not lucky, if I get a sentence, I try to get it after the sentence while they're appealing the decision. Because I've got a few cases in this respect. And they're appealing the decision, which you wouldn't understand. Why would you appeal that decision if we already have precedent?
Indeed, that's the thing, isn't it? In law, it's already there.
It's frustrating, Colin.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
But, it's good to know that there's somebody fighting the courts.
Yeah. I love it, to be honest.
Not everybody really understands it and knows about it, even the courts, even the judges. You just had the situation where the judges stopped proceedings to ask you.
What do I think?
What's the precedent here?
Yeah, I've got a case in Murcia, and he was very interested because it was the second case he dealt with. The first one, it was already being appealed. And he wanted to learn more about it with all of us. So after the hearing, he stopped everything and he made a colloquium there with lawyers that were sitting there asking me and trying to understand why the administration is being so tough.
Stubborn.
But they are. And that's why, as long as they carry on being stubborn, we will carry on fighting for it.
Keep pushing them.
Yeah.
Great to talk to you again, Ignacio. Look forward to catching up in a couple of weeks and maybe at the webinar next Wednesday.
Yep.
Alicante Lawyers, if you want to look up Pellicer and Heredia, it's the easiest way to do it. AlicanteLawyers.es, and we'll talk again soon. Nice to see you. Cheers.
Thank you.